Hello, I'm Mr. BBates1 and welcome back to another episode of MC Map Faker. In today's video, we are taking a look at another minigame. It's a little bit more than 50 command blocks this time. In fact, I'll tell you how many it is. It's like 96 command blocks. It's nearly 100. It's quite a few this time, but trust me, you get an amazing game at the end of it. So what is this new game that you ask? Well, you don't ask, do you? Because you've already seen it on the thumbnail. It's Minecraft Roulette. If you are a regular watcher of my videos, you will notice that all of this stuff behind me looks completely different to what it did before. And that's basically because I had a week off. I had some free time and I decided to revamp up the map. Now, as you can see here, I've been very busy. I've built myself a car park. I've populated it with many modes of transport. Now this includes bikes, buses, cars, you name it, I've got it here. Put some food stands down outside to give yourself some food, obviously keep the hearts up. And just basically just re-spruce the area up, give it a facelift, put some extra shops in, things like that. You know, just the usual sort of things that you might find in a theme park. I think it looks really nice. I really enjoyed how it turned out. And I think we'll add more of that in later on as we build upon in this area. But we won't focus too much on that. Let's get back to what the actual video is. And of course, that is building the minigame. Now, as with all my videos, you know I like to show you how the game works. And then I like to show you how it really works. Now this game can be played in single player and it can be played as a multiplayer game. So just to show you how well it works as a multiplayer game, I invited some friends over to have a game. So without further ado then, let's get into today's video. Let's take a look at it with the help of my friends and then let's see how it was made. So if we just take a look at this then from a top-down view for a moment, just while my friends run around and play the game, I'll leave the notifications up on the screen as you can see here. So the game comes off, advises you that it will start shortly, and tell you to stand on your colour of choice. You are given a few moments to pick your colour of choice. You can either be green, red or black, usually the typical colours for a roulette. Looks like most of them are favouring the black here. So as you can see here now, it's now beginning. The NPC is being spun around and around and around and around and around until he gets very dizzy. And then eventually he will stop on a colour. Now if you're actually in the game and on the coloured squares at the time where he stops, you will get like a notification token saying you've won X amount of tokens, blah blah blah, this that and the other. In fact, let's jump down and join them. And just watch it from a first-person perspective.
Big money. No whammies. Sounds. I got a ding. Yep.
Black just before green, you were close on it. Oh no, is it red? Oh, he's not on the right block.
Red.
Go over to him again, he'll move for a sec.
Red one.
I'm not going to lie to you, the green one was meant to be a high payout, but I ran out of time, so it didn't have a high payout in the end. I was going to code it so that if you landed on green, you get 100 tokens. But time constraints kind of meant I couldn't. Although there is something that you have pointed out to me high.
The fact that if you're standing in the white whenever it goes, you take damage.
Yeah, I thought it would push you out of the way instead of give you damage.
Yeah, won again.
I was favouring the black today. If you guys run out of money, it'll kick you out of the game, just so you know.
But I'm maintaining my 101.
So what does it take to apply to be a bouncer?
You what, sorry?
I want to be a bouncer and chuck them out of the game when they run out of money. Throw them out the back door in the alley.
That's it, yeah. It's it comes up, it kicks you out, and it says, "Sorry, you don't have enough money to carry on playing," or something like that. It does. You have to, I think it's if you drop below 5. That's the maximum sort of cost to play the game. So as soon as you drop below 5, it kicks you out saying thanks for playing. Come on, Black. Oh, come on.
Yes.
Lost again. I'm not doing very well here, man. I'm losing money left, right, and centre. You'll start dying if you stand there, Papa.
I don't have much left before I am dead.
Well, I didn't program the game to do that, so if you die while still in the game, I don't know what will happen. Because I never programmed the game itself to shift people from here or
Oh, God.
expect them to die.
I only have 1 heart left.
It won't actually set.
I'm suffocated on the wall.
And we shall call it there, I think. Absolutely amazing time. I'd just like to say thank you very much to all my friends that turned up and played the games with me. I'd also like to thank you very much to Psycho Kitty as well, who did actually turn up, but unfortunately because she was looking after a little one, she turned up a bit later on after the recording had finished. But thank you for turning up as well, Psycho Kitty. I really much appreciate it. Now we've had the fun and games. Now it's time to actually see how all of this was made. So let's go take a look at that. And here we are under Minecraft Roulette. And for the most part, you know, as you can see here, they're just a few long chains really. Some of them are conditional, some are not. And basically, I've just broken them down into a few sections on either side. So we've got the startup sequence, which is this big long chain here at the front. We've got the during gameplay, which is the elements just to the right of me there. And then there's the stopping part of the game and detecting what the final score is on the end of back there where you see the long chain. But there's quite a few elements obviously to this game, which runs off a few things like scoreboards. First of all, let's take a look at the scoreboards, what needs to be set up and put into play, and then let's take a look at the other commands. The first thing that I did is I set up a scoreboard called MR, which is Minecraft Roulette, NPC score. The second scoreboard that we create is one called Minecraft Roulette, PLY, which is short for player, and score. Because essentially all we're doing is that we're spinning the NPC round using a timer, which has actually been provided to me by a guy called Evil on the Discord. But many special thanks to him for the code for it. And essentially the timer itself is a random timer. So the idea is that every time it spins at a random interval, therefore really creating a real random element as to what block it can land on. I don't know what it's going to land on, and I made the game. You know what I mean? And that's essentially what this is meant to be for. So for that, there is a few scoreboards as well. So in this case, we've got a scoreboard called Len. We've got another one called Calculate, or Calc. And then we have another one called Timer. The actual chain after this is just setting up those elements. So the first thing we're doing is that we're actually tagging our entity. So we're going to actually use him as he spins around to be our guy that basically sets up the timer. We set him as 0 to begin with, and then for our length value, we basically use the random feature of the scoreboard to generate a random number for the length scoreboard. So with the scoreboards in place then, the first thing we should take a look at is the entrance into the game. So the first thing is I've got the dialogue like this. The button for that is there's quite a few commands here actually. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 commands that's running here. So the very first thing it does is that it tags the initiator for the MR play tag. Now this is essentially what is used for all the on-screen notifications and stuff like that. Now the tokens thing is basically to make sure, because 5 is the minimum amount, the maximum amount that you'll be charged to play a game, you need to have at least a minimum of 5 to be able to play. If you don't have that, it won't tag you as a player. Sort of commands that run afterwards will also sort of follow suit, and they're all basically designed to prevent any player that doesn't have the money, or the tokens, sorry, to get into the game. And if you do have the tokens, then it will basically add a couple of tags into play. So in this case, it will add MR play, as I mentioned. There's MR no play. And the reason for that is that when you first enter the game, there might be a game in progress, because this game will run whether you're in there or not. When you first enter into the game, you're tagged as no play, so that none of the calculations take place for you. You're essentially just entered the game, and anyone who stands on the black sort of concrete that's there, when the game plays, are safe from playing. They won't lose any money while being there. Once you're into the game, you're basically into the startup sequence. At some point, whether you're halfway through it or not, you're going to get to this point, and this point essentially will start the game over and over again. Every 30 seconds, the game will replay whether there's a player in here or not. and it's done by this method. Now it's the same method as I've got over here. I loop in by TPing them onto the armor stand. The one below pressure plate TPs in back. This will power all of this chain. If I want to stop the game, all I have to do is just kill the entity and the game will stop. Now I've labelled mine MR played because I've got other armor stands and I don't want it to interfere. So the first set of command blocks then are simply displaying the title on the screen. There's one that says the game begins shortly, and the second message being stand on your colour of choice. Now the second one is conditional because the subtitle won't come on screen if the first game didn't, so there's no point in having one without the other. Now the third command block will take place 20 seconds later. It says 10 seconds in the corner because that's how long it's left. It gives you the 10-second warning, and then 10 seconds later, which is 200 ticks. This one's conditional as well, and the message spinning. So the next bit here, this was actually introduced because, as you saw in the previous video, somebody ended up dying because I didn't fix this. Simply, this command here will find any player who's standing on top of the white concrete, and it will shift them out of the way. Well, first of all, it messages them, asks them why they're standing on concrete, and then it TPs them away. And that location is just to the side of the wheel. Now this one's always unconditional because whether the message got displayed or not, you want to shift them. The next stage is loading the P barrier, is what I've called it here, which is player barrier, which is setting a redstone block over here. All it is just barrier blocks, that barrier off the area that stop the players from coming out of the coloured section once the game starts. You can see that there is just a redstone block. So the final elements are then, at this point the game is about to begin, we want to lock the players into their choice before the game starts spinning. So the first thing we do is unconditional. We always want to tag players within a certain area. So this one here is looking for any players within the set area. So any players within the green area. I think this one's green, isn't it? Yeah, green. So any player that stood in the green area, it'll tag them as number 1 on the MR player scoreboard that we created earlier. And then for this, we're then removing their tag MR no play so that they are then included in the calculations at the final part of the game. And it's the same command each time for each colour section. So again for red, but this time we're setting it as number 2, removing the tag. And again for black, we're setting it as number 3. Now these numbers that we're setting the players as for the scoreboard, now essentially these numbers we're going to use in a mathematical calculation at some point. The way that you actually detect whether scores match or not is that when we spin our NPC around, if that NPC stops on one of those blocks, we'll use exactly the same method as what we used before, where we'll detect what block they're on. And if they're on one block, we'll set its score as 1, we'll set its score as 2, and set its score as 3, and so on. The final block here then is a redstone set block. It's always unconditional. And this essentially is setting a redstone block all the way over here into this spot. And this is the part where the game will trigger. So the first thing it'll do here is it will remove the redstone block. Then we will TP the entity back to the green spot. The next section is setting redstone blocks. Now this is using the fill command, but we're actually making use of the replace selector within this. It'll target any target block and it will replace it with redstone blocks like that. And all of these are essentially a sequence of the same command with just minor alterations to change its positioning. To move to, well, there we go, that was a short one, that one. So after it's set the redstone block and that's kicked off, we just trigger the game by moving the NPC. It's sort of a little bit of a mini fix. It's not always necessary, but for some reason every now and then, if you power all these on all at once, it doesn't always necessary to pick up the entity straight away. I mean, I don't know why. This is to ensure that it does just by nudging the NPC forward. And then as soon as it nudges the NPC forward, it sets a redstone block in 2 different places. So the first one it sets, actually we've just seen it there, which is the sound effect. So the actual noise that you hear going around, I spent quite a while going through the different sound effects, trying to get the closest that I could. Now if you've heard the sound of a roulette wheel before, when you spin it, it sort of makes like a bit of a like sort of noise when it spins around. And this was that sound effect that we got was basically the closest I could get to it. The other redstone block is here, which is the timer part, which is what Evil supplied to us. So in the first sort of command block here then, what this is doing is it's taking the length that's been calculated and it adds it to this score on the calculate scoreboard. Now the reason for is that it's going to use this value to do its calculations rather than the master value, because obviously we don't want length to get wiped out, because that's what the sort of the master length that we're going to keep changing every time. We'll see that later on in the process. But we want to always reset it back to this value so that we can redo our calculation each time. Now what we do is that each time we'll minus off the value from one scoreboard to another scoreboard, and this will update the value of calc. Now because this value of calc is set here, it's obviously more than 1. So it satisfies this condition and it adds 1 to the timer scoreboard. This here essentially works out that if the calculation is 0, then it is the same, and then it resets the timer back to 0 again if that is the case. If not, it goes back to here, it restarts the process again, and it'll keep calculating and minusing each time, and the timer will keep going up each time. And when that redstone block stops it here, it does a couple of things. So the first thing it does here is it stops the sound effect that's over there. The command block underneath it is just setting air. The next one is the same fill command, fill replace command that we were using before, but this simply is doing it the opposite way around now. So it's putting target blocks where there's redstone blocks. The next one then sets air block here next to the timer to just stop that, because it doesn't need to be calculating at all when it's not in use. So the rest of these elements then are basically checking where the entity is and setting and updating values on the scoreboard. Now you can see I've named them all here. So the first sort of sections here is green, so there's 3 for each section. So I'll show you once and we'll just sort of skip along, you just fill in the gaps basically. So the way that works is that it executes as the entity, again using all relative stuff. So it's all relative, so it tests directly below itself for Concrete 13. Now in Minecraft Bedrock Edition, Concrete 13 is green, and green in the terms of the scoreboard is number 1, red is 2, black is 3. And then the last one is simply displaying the green wins message that you come up, and in each instance it'll be red wins, black wins, whatever it is. So this next one then is what does our actual calculation. And simply this is just taking the NPC score which we set using the command blocks before, and we're using this for the player score that we set when we first started the game. So the next one is did you win? And simply this is using the title roll command, and we're using the score selector within that title, and that will appear under the red wins, green wins, black wins, whatever message that appears. And then the next one along here, this one's specific to my game, but this is where you would do the payout. So for me, it's adding tokens to a scoreboard, but if yours was gifts, items, physical, whatever it is, you would use it here. You would set your winning point at this point. And this one does like a bit of a sound effect if you win. It does the level up XP sound, and it's doo doo doo, just a bit of a nice sound. And then the other elements are basically the lose message. And there's a couple of ways. I did it if it was minus, on the chance that it went past 0. Anyone's score went past 0. And I also did it for if it was 1 or above. So this is the minus one. And simply it's using exactly the same thing, the title raw command, but this time it's targeting for any score that's minus 1 or below. And then it will remove 5 tokens from the scoreboard. In fact, look, I told you I was losing them. Losing 5 tokens. So the last part then is setting a new random time for the timer. So when I was saying to you previously about the length being set and used as the calculation, and we're using that to determine whether or not the value is the same. So with this then, this is setting a random number between 100 and 300. I might be mistaken on these, but I think these are something like 10 seconds to 20 seconds or something like that. I think that random number is. That just allows for, like, for the NPC to truly land on a random thing. I don't know what block it will land on. I haven't programmed it, and that's what makes it great, because it is a truly random element. Well, as random can be anyway. And then the last final elements then are just literally tidying up the game. So this is removing the player barrier, removing them all from the scoreboard so they're no longer a part of the game again. So the next time they come round, there's no mistake of what score they've got. This will then re-tag them back as no play. And then the very final thing is teleporting the armor stand, which we have all the way over there, back onto the pressure plate to restart the game. There are 2 other elements that we have to the side here. Oh, getting stuck in here. We have display money, which is again just using an action bar this time, but using title raw on the action bar, and we're using the score sort of JSON elements to obtain our objective from the token scoreboard and display it next to, in this case, this is my token logo. And then the final element of the game is checking whether or not the player's got any money left, because if you gamble it all away, you can end up with no tokens, and you don't want to end up owing money to the banker. So in this instance, this prevents you from doing so, and it's looking for any player that has 4 or less tokens. Since 5 is the maximum amount of tokens that you can lose playing this game, this is simply designed to make sure that you don't drop below that. When you do, you get given the MR kick tag. And then once that happens, there's a chain of events that take place, literally. So the first thing it does is it tells your message saying that you don't have enough to continue and thanks you for playing. This displays in the action bar. The next thing it does then is it removes all the tags that has been given to you. So the MR play tag, so you'll no longer get the on-screen notifications. And it removes you as the NR play because it's just a redundant tag, you don't need it on you. This removes you from any scoreboard just to make sure that even if it was mid-game and it was already set. And then the last one TPs you outside of the play area and then removes the final MR kick tag from you. And that is it. That is every single command block to this. I actually forgot this guy. Yeah, he's looking to leave. So This one is just literally the opposite of everything else. Removing the tags, adding the title raw, TPing them out, making use of the initiator tag. Looks quite daunting, and if you've managed to get through my droning voice, I'm sorry. It is a long mini game. There's a lot to show in it, but trust me, if you do manage to go through it, pause it on the commands and that. Have a good look at them. Try it out for yourself. It's a lot of fun, and as you've seen, it definitely is a lot of fun playing with your friends. Now, I don't think I will bore you any more with me talking about the commands. I think this time we'll end it here. The video's already getting on a bit now. Again, thank you very much to the players that came and played the game. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much to Evil for the timer and the commands for that. And thank you very much for you guys for getting to the end of the video. Much appreciated. For now then, I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.